When I was growing up, life was harder, I guess, as I recall it. But we were tougher too, in many ways. That's just how we were brought up. When I was in kindergarten, at the age of 5, I walked to school, which is about 7 or 8 blocks from my house, just like all the other kids. And I know that sounds like the old cliche, but yeah, that's what we did. And there was one kid whose mom started taking him and picking him up from school. But that was after he got run over by a car. And I remember that we were all trying to figure out how it could have happened, because if you looked both ways before you crossed the damn street, it wasn't supposed to happen. But who knows what happens in those cases. I remember we also had to memorize our phone numbers, just in case we got lost, or if we were dumb enough to get into a stranger's car but somehow smart enough to know we screwed up before things got ugly. I don't know how the math works there, but our moms basically just had to count on us not to be that stupid. My number was 233-8763. I never did get into any strangers' cars that I can remember. But there were a couple of occasions where the phone number actually did come in handy. For instance, my first girlfriend, Tanya, was a kindergarten classmate of mine. We used to go hang out in the park after school and pretend like we were married and had kids to deal with. Meanwhile, my mom would be falling apart at home, dealing with the thought of her stupid kid turning up dead in a dumpster somewhere. So I got into a lot of trouble for that. But there weren't any phones in the park. What was I supposed to do? Once we went all the way to Tanya's house. She told me she had something she wanted to show me. It turned out to be her collection of Barbies. And I don't know, she told me she'd never be able to do without them. And like I cared. I was not that cultured with Barbies and things like that. I came up with this idea of putting the Barbies in a pan of boiling water on the stove to see how long it would take for them to show third-degree burns. But unfortunately, she didn't go for that. Anyway, after a while, and it may have been a long while, I don't remember, but it occurred to me that, hey, I'm at Tanya's house. There's a phone here. I can call my mom. And even then, I put it off a bit, which I'm sure is because of Tanya. The girl demanded so much attention and you couldn't get away from her. But I finally got around to calling her up, and I felt like such a big boy in that moment and so responsible. But my mom, she didn't see it that way. She was quite furious. In fact, it was the first time in my life I had heard someone just totally blow up on the phone. And when I finally got back home, my dad was there waiting for me. He had his belt off and in his hand, and I knew he was going to give me a whooping. Now, if any of you have ever received the belt, then you know it's the kind of punishment that you just don't forget for a while, at least until you decide to get in trouble again sometime soon after that. But yeah, he gave me quite a stinger there on the old buttocks. I didn't cry though. It was tough. Crying was for girls. I don't know, maybe for some boys too, but those were the kind of boys that would later in life turn out to be girls anyway. I mean, back then I was too young to know about any of that, and I may have been too young also to know that I had let my parents down. In fact, the belt was not the only punishment that I received that day. My mom decided to make some cookies that afternoon, and I didn't like everything that my mom made. But goodness gracious, she made some of the best cookies. These ones were chocolate chip, and she actually made a couple of extra batches. And even from the other room, you could smell them, and it'd make you totally forget about your blistered butt cheeks. And suddenly, everything in the world was okay again. And my mom called me to the kitchen, and I'll never forget this. I skipped through the living room and got there to the kitchen and found the entire kitchen table covered in cookies. And my mom saw how excited I was, and she came and put her arm around me, and she said, "These cookies, they really look delicious, don't they, Shane?" And I was like, yeah, they look good. Well, she told me, even if it takes us 50 freaking days to eat all of these cookies, you're not going to get one of them. Ever. So I guess I learned that day, the hard way. It's just best to wait till you're older, I guess, to have a girlfriend.